Obviously, focus plays a big role. What I want to bring up before we start diving in is Carl Jung identified that the human mind does two things all the time, and that is take in information and make decisions about that information. Our perception facet is all about our information gathering. It's what information we're focusing on and what we're paying attention to. So again, we have sensing and we have intuition. Just for the background, just before we dive into attentional focus, sensing people are people who really like things that are factual. They like paying attention to details. They like practical action steps. Their minds work very much in a linear type of fashion. So this plays a big role too with our instruction with players. So sensors like to learn A to B to C to D and follow a linear progression in the way that they learn. So again, practical, they focus on details, things that are factual, and steps. I always kind of think of sensors, generally speaking, as like recipe people. My mom is a great cook. She's been cooking the same meals for decades, yet every time she goes to make her meal, she pulls out the recipe and she follows the steps to a T. Because when she knows when I follow my steps, it's going to produce a really good outcome. She already knows what it'll produce. And this is the way the sensing mind is geared towards. And the other part of our mind, or the other part that we can use to focus, is our intuition. And intuitive people who are dominant there, and we all have these things, but intuition is when we tend to focus more on things that are theoretical, conceptual, more big picture, more broader concepts. So my mom, when you talk to her, she'll tell you all the details. I tend to speak very generally as an intuitive. I kind of use more generalizations at times and focus more on the big picture, how it's collecting to the whole. Now, when we blend, there was research done with the functional MRI, and this shows that when they had people in the functional MRI, they showed part of our mind was there to unpack the little details when we got a task, the instructions. And then another part connected it to the whole, all those parts. The parts is the sensing aspect of our mind, and the wholeness is the intuition. So an easy analogy that I use when I'm telling this to students is you can imagine a forest. So if you imagine being in the forest, the sensor or sensing type person is going to be on the ground floor. They're going to be able to study the details of a particular tree. They'll be able to see the color of it, the bark, the way it moves, the size, the shape. They can touch it. Sensing people are very tactical and sensing-based people. So they tend to gather through their senses. But a sensing person, you can imagine them being on the forest floor, studying the specific details. They can see the specifics. Whereas the intuitive person is in a helicopter and they are looking at the same forest, but obviously their view is much different. They're able to see the full picture. So they're more into like topography and these general things, and they don't see as much specifics, but they see the whole thing. And so these things play a big role in how we're going to be out there on the golf course and the type of information we need in our lessons. I'll give you a quick example with lesson. I was just thinking of it this morning in the shower. When we're working, like, let's say with a sensing player, we have a new student coming in for swing instruction or mental instruction. It's best to be guiding them and showing them the steps, that route that they're going to be taking. Bobby Jones, from listening to some of his videos and his instructional thing that he put out, I forget what it was called, but he's there teaching the golf game. I read that Bobby Jones's instructor took him out to learn high flop shots by taking him in front of a big tree. And he showed Bobby what to do and hit a shot and hit it over the tree. And he said, Bobby, I'm going to go into the office. Here's a bucket of balls. I want you to figure out how to do this. So the intuitive is going to start always with the end in mind. We show them the finished picture, what we're working towards, what's the end goal. And their mind works backwards and reverse engineers to figure out the details. So Bobby's hitting it over the tree. Finally, he figures out to hit it over the tree, runs and tells his coach, I can do it, coach. Now the coach is filling in details to help him be more successful, make it a little easier. But he's starting with the end and then showing necessary steps and details along the way. Does that make sense, everybody? Any questions so far? Whereas like if we start with the end in mind with the sensing, they don't know how they're going to get there. They kind of stress about it. They need the roadmap. And then we reverse engineer with intuitives. Show them the end, let them ask for those details that fill in their concept of what to do.